The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "It is not those who say to me, 'Lord, Lord,' who will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the person who does the will of my Father in heaven. Therefore, everyone who listens to these words of mine and acts on them will be like a sensible man who built his house on rock. Rain came down, floods rose, gales blew, and hurled themselves against that house, and it did not fall. It was founded on rock. But everyone who listens to these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a stupid man who built his house on sand. Rain came down, floods rose, gales blew, and struck that house, and it fell, and what a fall it had." The Gospel of the Lord. It is not those who say, "Lord, Lord," who would inherit the kingdom of heaven, but those who do the will of my Father, those who do the will of my Father. And then it goes ahead to say that everyone who listens to my words and acts on them. Okay? The first one is not all who say, "Lord, Lord," but those who do. And then it comes down to explain this more and says, those who listen to my word and act on it. So important not only to listen to the word of God, it's important to listen to it, but it's so important, most important, to act on it. It is not enough to just listen and be entertained with whatever thing is said in the gospel and understand everything about scriptures, but we do not act on them. And Mother Angelica said that we can know about God when we don't know God. So we can read about God, we listen to Him, we know everything about Him, we know everything about the story of how God created the world from the time God created the world until now, after the resurrection of Christ, when we await His coming. And we know nothing about God Himself. We can know about Him and we don't know Him. And it's important. It's not only about listening to the Word of God, but acting on it. What does this mean? It is not enough to give alms in church. Just give examples. It is not enough to give alms in church when your neighbor is dying of hunger. It is not enough to come and give millions or whatever and give a lot of money in church when your next door neighbor is dying in hunger. This time is the time of Christmas. For us as priests, we receive a lot of gifts of clothes and things like that. And I say it is not enough. It's better even you don't do it. You don't get something for the priest, and make sure that your house help or the people around you have enough. It is not enough to get clothes for the priest, and your house help is living with rags, who has never changed his clothes or her clothes for 2-3 years, wearing the same clothes all the time. Yet you are getting new clothes for the priest. That doesn't work. Okay? You don't go to heaven because you are treating the priest well. It's about how you treat your neighbors. Even the gospel talks about care for the poor. It's only in one place, in Matthew chapter 10, where he talks about giving a glass of water to a servant or to a prophet. The rest is about care for the poor. Okay? It is not enough to be an acolyte who would serve in a nearby parish or in your own parish, and yet it's so difficult for you to forgive the people you live with, people who have hurt you in life. You say, "I will never forgive them," yet you are serving as an acolyte. It is not enough to be a wonderful singer, Yet, um, after Mass, you spend your time gossiping or speaking, backbiting, or talking negatively about people. So Jesus is talking about today in the gospel about acting on the word of God. Not only listening to what he's saying, but acting on it. What are we to act on? His words. And what does his word say? Love one another. His word says, forgive those who hurt you. His word says that we must pray for our enemies. We must not turn our ears away from the cry of those who need it. We must not turn our ears away from the cry of the poor. We must not turn our ears away from those we are not popular with, people we feel they are an embarrassment to our lives. Because at times we want to stay where we are. And whenever we find people who are crying out to us for help, we feel this is an embarrassment. And we don't want to reach out to them. Yet we feel we are Christians by the fact that we come to Mass on Sundays, by the fact that we do everything according to how the church's law has stipulated. We may realize we are just law abiders, not actually Christians. We might be churchgoers and not Christians. It's important that we are Christians, and what Jesus means by Christians is that we build our faith on the foundation which is Christ, the Word of God. And it's not only about doing the Word of God, it's not only about listening to the Word of God, but putting it into practice. And how do we put this? I talked about love, forgiveness, not turning our ears away from the cry of the poor, giving food to those who are hungry, giving water to those who are thirsty, clothing those who are naked. Let's not pass them by and pretend as if we are not seeing them. They are everywhere. They are crying out to us. And in them, in their voice, is the voice of Christ himself, crying out to us for help. I know there are many people, especially during this time of Christmas, who are opening their eyes wide to be able to reach out to those who are poor, to be able to reach out to those who are needy. Please keep doing that. This is what Christ calls us to do. He calls us, as we prepare for Christmas, it's not only about exchanging gifts, it's not only about exchanging gifts among class, I want to give to this person because he's going to give to me. Oh, very soon we will have exchange of gifts. I give out because I know I'm going to receive. Give to those you know you are not going to get back from. Give to those who really need it. Do not just give for pleasure, but give to those who are crying out for help. And in this way, we would say we are really awaiting the birth of Christ. And Jesus says that we must build our faith, we must build our Christian life on a solid rock. And this rock is not only is Christ himself, but also putting into practice what we hear from the Word of God and what Jesus teaches us every day.